The Suicune event is only days away, and in today's video, we're going to look at a few more bits of information we got since the data mine on the last maintenance that happened a few days ago. We now know the rewards for the missions during the Suicune event. We also know the event exchange shop items and their exchange costs. We'll be looking at that as well and comparing it to previous events like Entei's event to see what has changed and whether we can afford to get all of the good items from the exchange shop. We'll also take a look at the priority in terms of which items to exchange for, and we'll be taking a quick look at the data mine on Suicune. We now know its drowsy power requirement. You can find this information both at cerebi.net and also on the Rainanex website. Basically, by completing these missions, like ranking up your Snorlax up to Ultra 4 in the first week and Master 5 in the second week, as well as giving up biscuits using incenses and sticking to your bedtime, and then using candies and cooking 12 times, you'll be able to get all of these Suicune mains. And I punch all of those numbers in here, and in total, you'll be able to get 460 Suicune mains pretty much for free from the event missions. And how does that compare to the last legendary event? Well, it's actually the same. The numbers did not change at all. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Well, that actually depends on whether the exchange shop items have changed in cost. So here are the items and their cost to exchange in the event exchange shop. Things that you can exchange in this shop are the Suicune incense. You can only hold one at a time and only use one at a time. Suicune biscuits. The reason why there are two of the same item is that they have different costs. This separation caters to the new players because then everybody can exchange for the cheaper of the options. The more expensive options, well, they're catered for the long-term players or the whales or the players who have the strategies to maximize their Suicune main gains throughout the 2 weeks. You'll also be able to get handy candies, water candy, dream clusters, one main skill seed, and I highly recommend that everyone has enough mains to get one of these. You can also get a water stone, but I think water stone is, unlike the last event, a little lower in priority because not a lot of Pokemon right now uses water stone. In comparison, Firestone, well, there's actually 3 Pokemon that can use Firestone. We've got Growlithe, we got Eevee, and we've got Vulpix. Whereas for Waterstone, it's really just for Eevee to evolve into Vaporeon at this stage of the game anyway. Especially if you purchase one of the previous diamond bundles during the water event, you might be holding on to 2 water stones already. So this becomes a low priority. You can also get Suicune candy. Now this is only important if you actually ever plan to use Suicune on your team and hopefully you actually manage to catch a good one. Otherwise, that might be a low priority for you. Then in the second week, you can get Suicune incense and Suicune biscuits for an even cheaper rate than the first week. And once again, I think it's great for newer players to be able to access these cheaper versions. One thing I definitely wouldn't exchange for is the 999 Suicune candy. This is an extremely low value item. It's really only there for you to dump any excess Suicune mains you happen to have by the end of the event. But if you happen to have a lot of excess Suicune mains, I'm wondering whether you may have purchased a little too much of the item bundles for this event, which we covered in the last video. So it's smart to count your mains ahead of time to see what you need. We've already covered the value bundles, but just a quick reminder, very recommended to have a good camp ticket running for both weeks of the event if you can. If not, at least one of the 2 weeks. I've had a few people ask me whether it's worth using good camp ticket in the first week or the second week if you only have one. Well, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And everyone's going to be doing it differently. So there's not one recommendation here, but I can give you some points to consider. Number 1 consideration is, well, which week is the one that you'll need more help with? For example, in week 1, if you're overstacking berries and using large inventory Pokemon to bring berries into the new week, or you're using Expand Pot from the Sunday night before the event, all of these strategies help power up your first week. Having said that, the second week, you get a stronger Snorlax to start, but you don't get the preparation, and also you get a 1.5 times drowsy power multiplier on the Sunday of the second week, which means less need for you to power up Snorlax compared to the first week. Although, for the second week, chances are you're going to Cyan Beach. Maybe you're going to Lakeside, but chances are most people will be at Cyan Beach. And ranking up Snorlax at Cyan Beach is a little harder than Greengrass Isle, where everyone will be for the first week. And if you were after that Master 20 achievement reward like the Sub-Skill Seed, then maybe you should use your Good Camp ticket in week 2. What I don't like about using the Good Camp ticket in week 2 only though, is that you don't really know how far along the exchange shop you're at. Because if you use your Good Camp ticket in the first week, you'll have a good idea of how hard you need to try for the second week. In fact, if you feel like you really want more items from the exchange shop and you already use your Good Camp ticket for the first week and feel like you're still quite far behind, well, you've still got the option of spending 500 diamonds to get another Good Camp ticket to use for the second week. You have that option available to you. But if you were to choose to use your Good Camp ticket in second week only, well, you don't have the option to go back in time and use your Good Camp ticket for the first week because you realize that you didn't quite get enough mains. But then again, if you're just short on mains by a little bit, could you spend those 500 diamonds and just buying one of these value bundles, the 5 Poké Biscuit and 50 main value bundles? You can get 2 of them for 500 diamonds. Well, it's very hard to compare the numbers because if you get 2 of these, then you get 100 mains. Whereas Good Camp ticket gives you 7 extra hungry spawns, which will hopefully give you an average of 8 to 9 mains per spawn, which sounds like less mains, but your 20% boost in speed throughout the whole week, as well as expanded pot from the Good Camp ticket, these are all benefits as well. And not to mention that perhaps you'll be lucky enough to get a hungry Suicune from your Good Camp ticket. So some of these numbers are not comparable, but it's worth considering, and you have the ability to choose to use another Good Camp ticket for the second week if you used it for the first week. What I do like about using Good Camp ticket for the second week is, well, there's more water spawns, so that should mean the extra spawn from your Good Camp ticket is more likely to be water type. At Greengrass Isle, there's just so many other sleep styles and other Pokemon that aren't water types competing for that spawn. So theoretically, you should get even more mains if you use the ticket for the second week as opposed to the first. And that also means because Suicune is a water type, it's less crowded by other Pokemon, so there's more chance for Suicune to spawn as the Good Camp ticket spawn if you use it at Cyan Beach. So these are all considerations of whether to use the Good Camp ticket in the first or the second week. I can't really tell you one is better than the other. I personally will be using it for both weeks, and I have yet to ask Piggy what she thinks she'll be doing for her account. For her, I don't think she ever reached Master 20 at Greengrass Isle, so there's one more benefit of using the Good Camp ticket in the first week. And another quick reminder is that the last chance bundles that show up in the second week of the event, they give you more mains for less diamonds. But the cost is you don't get all the other items. So you don't get Friend Incense or Suicune Candy or Dream Clusters. You're only getting biscuits and mains. Now, if you are a new player, like brand new, and you're struggling to reach Cyan Beach Master 5, maybe Good Camp ticket for the second week because you need to reach Master 5 in order to get all of the missions completed. The strength needed to reach Ultra 4 at Greengrass Isle for the first week is only about 125,000 strength, whereas the strength needed to reach Master 5 at Cyan Beach is about 420,000 Snorlax strength, so it's significantly higher. Most long-term players should not have a problem, but if you're brand new, this could be a little harder. Okay, so back to the event item exchanges. What is the priority, in my opinion, on what you should get? And how did this shop compare to the Entei event shop? So I highlighted them in this table. Now, everything pretty much remained the same as the Entei event, except that Handy Candy, you can now get 5 more of them, so the limit has gone up. I don't think that affects many people. Otherwise, everything else has remained the same in terms of cost. I've got the main cost over here, the limit that you can buy of each item. This is the second week exchange. This is the first week exchange. And multiply the main cost by the limit means how much in total of the mains you will need to get all of those items. Now, if the item, for example, Handy Candy, is available at the Sleep Shop Exchange, like the Premium Exchange, for example, then I've also listed them here in terms of how much they would cost if you were to buy them in the exchange shop. So it costs 75 sleep points to get 3 candies, and I'm counting Handy Candy as 3 candies. Using this as my neutral point, I then compared how much everything else costs in the shop. Water Candy is slightly better value because it pretty much costs you exactly the same, but Water Candy S actually gives you 4 candies. The only downside is versatility. You can only use Water Candy on water Pokemon. But if I count every candy as equal value, then it's slightly better to get Water Candy than Handy Candy. So therefore the premium exchange cost is 100 sleep points, but we're still only being charged 75 sleep points worth, or 12 mains. Now what this yellow row represents is that approximately the item costs about the same in the exchange shop than it does in the event exchange, whereas for green items, it's cheaper to get them in the event exchange than premium exchange. But not all items that are better value to get at the event exchange is necessarily worth it. Because even if they make Dream Cluster super cheap, it's not necessarily a priority. In red is a main skill seed. Now in red is when an item costs a lot more in the event exchange than it does in the regular or premium exchange shop. So in the premium exchange, normally to get a main skill seed, it costs 1800 sleep points. To get it in the event exchange for 350 mains, that's a total of about 2200 sleep points, which is rather expensive. But main skill seed, as you should all know by now, is one of the most limited items in the game. So despite this cost, this still remains a high priority to get, because if you don't get it from this exchange shop, you're going to have to wait another month for the premium exchange for you to get another main skill seed. Even worse, if you're free to play, there's really not many ways to get a main skill seed. So this is a high priority item despite being more expensive. So where I put in priority is in this column here. You can see that the 999 Suicune Candy Exchange is not only bad value, it's red, it's also not high priority because, well, there's just other more important items to get. Not to mention, you could just get Water Candy if you've got leftover mains, which is a approximately neutral value item. And then there's the other version of Suicune Candy, which only costs you 2 mains to get, and it is significantly cheaper than the 999 option. Okay, so let's go through the priority now. I'm going to assume that everybody wants to catch Suicune, which means that Suicune biscuits are a high priority item because in order to catch Suicune, you want to minimize your costs. You want to be using Suicune biscuit because they're worth 6 friendship points per biscuit. And if you were to buy 2 great biscuits in the premium exchange, it would cost you 800 sleep points. So relatively speaking, Suicune biscuit at 60 mains per biscuit is really good value. So get those before you get a Suicune incense. I just noticed this says Entei incense, ignore that. That's a typo. So make sure you show up to your Suicune encounter with Suicune biscuits in your bag. Without the biscuits, it's going to cost you more to catch a Suicune and take longer. So that is why Suicune biscuit is priority 0. Make sure you get that first before your Suicune incense. Now, based on our previous experiences with legendary events, we may get some Suicune biscuits for free before or during the event. So you can also consider those as part of the biscuits that you need to have before you use your Suicune incense. It's the same for the second week. You gotta have those Suicune biscuits before your Suicune incense. So once again, priority 0 and 1. Main skill seed is also equally a high priority item, as I explained before, but it may not necessarily be the first item you exchange, because I imagine most people want to start using their Suicune incenses early on in the week. So if you saved up for the main skill seed first, you'll be delaying your first few Suicune encounters. Well, why is that important? First of all, FOMO, but second of all, you can only use 1 Suicune incense a day, and if you plan to use all 10 Suicune incenses throughout the 14 days, you've only got a 4-day leeway when you might not be using the Suicune incense. But then again, if worse comes to worse, you can use a nap in order to use an extra Suicune incense. Of course, it comes with some downsides. For example, you can only get Suicune mains for your first session of each day. Now, for Waterstone, I did say that was a low priority, but it depends. Some people already used their Waterstone and invested in probably not the greatest Vaporeon and might be looking for another Waterstone without having to spend 1400 sleep points or having to buy bundles. Then this is actually good value. Then you should get a Waterstone from the Suicune exchange shop, because relatively speaking, it's a lot cheaper to get it from the event shop than it is to get it from the premium exchange. But if you already have 1 or 2 Waterstones and you don't need another one, then this is a low priority item. So I've put it to a priority of 4. Right next to Dream Clusters. Now, Dream Clusters, I do know that a lot of people are feeling the pressure of low Dream Shards now that level 60 has unlocked. In my mind, Dream Clusters value are going a little higher. For whales like myself, it's still not a problem, but for players like Piggy, that might be a priority 3.5 for her future investments. And given that it is good value to exchange Dream Clusters in the event exchange shop, if you're done with everything else, then this is worthwhile exchanging for. Now in total, all of these items added together, ignoring the 999 Suicune Candy exchange, it will cost you 3,920 Suicune mains. How much is that relatively speaking? Are we able to achieve these numbers? Let's go back and take a look at the mission rewards. We get 460 mains from our missions. With a lot of high closeness friends, we expect somewhere between 100 to 400 Suicune mains for this event. Now these are based on Entei events numbers. You can buy all of the Suicune mains from the event bundles, which is 1,250 mains. So even if I add this number, and this number, we're still shy of 2,000 mains, which is less than half of what we need to complete the event exchange. So that means that from our sleep research, we need to achieve approximately 2,000 mains to even come close to exchanging all of these items, which is fairly unrealistic given that for the Raikou event, I only got approximately 1,200 mains from sleep research. So it's very important that you prioritize what items to get. Let me know in the comments section below which items you think are a priority. I'll be doing a poll in the comments section below where you get to vote which item you think is a high priority item for the Suicune exchange shop. And if you think that's a high priority, leave a like on that item. And this will help other players see what the general consensus is for the priority of exchanging items in the event exchange shop, and not just my opinion about what's a priority. Lastly, I'd like to just make a comment about the data mined information on Suicune. We don't yet know its ingredient rate or its skill trigger rate, which is very important to determine if Suicune is actually any good. We do know that its frequency is 45 minutes. Which unfortunately is slower than both Entei, which is at 40 minutes, and Raikou, which is at 35 minutes. But as you should know by now, the speed itself is not enough to determine whether a Pokemon is good. We need to look at the ingredient rate, and more importantly for a skill specialist, the skill trigger rate, which we won't know until the Pokemon releases. Now, as for the minimum requirement in order to encounter Suicune in the wild, so you don't need this requirement met if you're using incense, but if you're trying for an encounter in the wild, the minimum drowsy power required is 46 million. So that's about 460 Snorlax strength if you're doing 100 sleep score. This number is higher than both Entei and Raikou, so that means that it will be a bit harder to get a wild Suicune than it is to get wild Entei or Raikou. Having said that, Slumbering is easier to get, and also Suicune is such a late addition in the game compared to the other two legendaries. Along with level 60 release, this kind of drowsy power is a lot more achievable than it was during the other 2 legendary events. If you're going for a 3-star sleep style during this event, and one of the great advantages of the 3-star sleep style is that you'll get a lot more mains, especially because Suicune is a water type, so this number will go up even more. This is the number of mains dropped by Suicune. Then we're expecting approximately Master 19 at Greengrass Isle or Master 16 at Cyan Beach in order for you to encounter a 3-star Suicune. So another reason to use your good game ticket in the appropriate week is to encounter 3-star Suicune. So whatever you do, you need to at least meet this requirement at Cyan Beach or this requirement at Greengrass Isle. The drowsy power requirement, we don't yet know. As you can see, it says unsettled. And all of these numbers are subject to change. The developers have done this before, where just before the Pokemon releases, they actually changed the data in the files. So these may not be exact. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to go to the poll in the comments section below and leave a like on the item that you think is a high priority. Don't forget to like and subscribe.